give us like who are you at first, and just an overview about HILOKAL. What have you done so far? What have you achieved? What goals have you hit? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is David, David Woodworth, and I'm from Canada, but I've been living in Korea for about 8, 9 years now. So when I came here, I wanted to start a business when I came here, and we started with a business partner, Korean business partner. Um, I've known him for a long time, but we started a language exchange, and it was just for friends because I want to learn Korean. And we met every Saturday, and it was good to meet other people. People would bring their friends, and we would just talk. It was just a free language exchange, and it just kept growing because the atmosphere was very good, the people were very good, the whole culture was great. I had another job at the time, and then it just kept growing. We started to see business opportunity. Thought, hey, this is great. So we grew it, and then I think it got to about 50 people in one cafe. We would just rent a cafe for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then people would join. And we started seeing business opportunity at that point, and thought, okay, let's put more effort into this. So we kept growing it, and then we started charging an entrance fee because it was taking a lot of our time. And if we were going to keep doing it, we needed to get some money. Then I quit my job and started doing it full time. And then I opened a cafe, then opened another cafe, and then we're going to open the third cafe. Lots of people coming every day, 6 events every day, so across the 2 locations.
Wow.
And so the community was good. It's like people in their 20s and 30s, sometimes 40s, international type people. Think like hostel crowd, not hostile, but hostel. Go to like a place where there'll be bunks and you'd be travelers with a backpack. I really liked to do that when I was younger. But think about that crowd, but they're now kind of working, or expats, and they're living in their 20s and 30s. So usually the backpack crowd, it can be like that, but it's a little bit younger, a little bit more adventurous, I think. But people who are living abroad, that was a crowd. So we thought, we have such a big community of people, let's do a party. So we started doing big parties. Yeah, I think the first one was Halloween. Halloween's not actually that big in Korea, but in the international crowd, people always love Halloween. So we had a party of about 200 people at that time, and we thought, oh, that's good. So then we threw another one. It was like 400 people. We thought, oh, this is great, and you can charge a much higher entrance fee because it's like unlimited beer and that kind of stuff. So taking all the organization skills and the community and the good group of people we had, we started doing these bigger parties, and we just kept driving through Seoul and seeing like bigger venues, right? There'd be like an anchored boat, and we thought, okay, we're gonna rent that. We'll have an event, and then we see like a really big ballroom. Okay, let's rent that, and we did all these things, and we had like ballroom parties, factory parties, cruise parties, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, and they got really big. So the community became like quite exciting, right? Like really themed parties, like Gatsby was always really great. Moulin Rouge was a really great New Year's party. So like everything's red, have burlesque dancers and like hire like really muscly guys from the gym, and they would come and just with their shirts off and bow tie, and they'd be there. And guys on stilts, like really super tall guys, and then like I guess the correct term is like dwarf. So they'd be together in the party, like these kinds of things, just to make it more fun, and it became more exciting. Then COVID happened, so it really could not be worse for an event like this, because the whole thing is like meet people from around the world, right, in one place. But now, at that time, you got to think like COVID restrictions, airplane flying in, and like think of the word foreigner. You think of a foreign person coming in, and it was terrible. You could not do an event. Everyone's got a mask on in Korea, so we thought, okay, can't do events right now, but it's probably passed, and it just kept going, and our community kept asking because it's lonely. It's more lonely now than ever, right? Especially with social media, it's like it's very lonely, and now you can't meet each other. So they kept asking, like, "Hey, can we meet online So we started doing Zoom events, and we saw, like, light bulb goes off, like, hey, like, we can connect many more people online than we can in these events, right? In the events, it's all localized SEO, all localized advertising. So we created a application with really great CTO who was coming through our events at that time, right? And he, very experienced, was working on language related applications, and we thought, hey, let's start this new thing, and we called it HILOKAL. Previous one was called GSM, Global Soulmates is the acronym for that. So we started this new thing, and we'll just take the community and put it online with this app. So now there's three of us, me and the same business partner, and the CTO. So we've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years, the events. So then we started making HILOKAL, and that's been a totally different business style. It's been a different journey, but I really like it. Like, I like it. Just a side note, like when we were doing the cafes, what we realized was matching the right people to the right person was really key. So we had developed some tech at that point. Like when people come in, they check in, they put in their name, their target language, their native language, their gender, and then we had a matching algorithm in the cafe that would shuffle everybody every hour. So you get to stand up, move to another table, and the table was always like a good match. Like let's be honest, there's 6 guys from the same country and they're all sitting together. It's not the same as if there's 3 guys, 3 girls, and then an equal mixture of different target language people. If I'm learning Korean, so like 3 people learning Korean and 3 people learning English, they mix, and it's like a really good atmosphere. So we've made that matching technology. So we'll bring it into the app. And we did that, but it's really quite a bit different. Like an offline event, there's like a table, there's a space, there's music, there's a drink. But in online, it's quite different. It's like more audio quality, user experience through using the interface of the app. So you have to learn a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's a challenge, right? Because like one of the advantages of an online app is it scales once you've got the right recipe. When I say recipe, it's not like a secret recipe. It's like you've got to just keep making it better and better and better. Keep listening to people. Oh, this is a problem, fix it. This is a problem, fix it. It's just like it's never ends. It just keeps going until it gets to a point where it's like the software is very good. There's no getting around that, right? But it's different because like when you're in an offline event, like you can't just control copy a cafe and control paste, right? You can't just do that. But with software, you can. But it's the challenge. It's a whole another challenge. It's like you got to make the software good, right? Like a cafe doesn't have to be that good. Like you can just come in there and there's a space for you to meet the right people. But an application, if you go in there and there's a little bit usability problem, then it's like, okay, that person's out. So this is a different challenge. So we've been scaling that up, and I think we're going to cross 1 million users just probably this week or next week. And 1 million downloads. So along this journey of like making that product market fit, I guess this is what I'm talking about. We've made a lot of mistakes, but we've found ways to grow. We've got I think we're proud. I can say we're proud of the amount of activity we have in the app. A lot of people coming in and really get sort of addicted to speaking the language that they want to learn. That's the main thing, right? And that's what people want, right? Like we work together with you. I mean, I think, Fabi, you're laughing because that was the thing that we found was good, right? When we were working together. Not in all countries, though. Some countries want to meet other people, but like just imagine all the time you're spending on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, right? Sometimes learning good stuff, sometimes not. And I think a lot of people in their 20s who are trying to learn language, they realize that. They're like, oh, I wish I could just not. I wish like learning language was fun, social. And that's what HILOKAL is trying to do, right? Like instead of being addicted to, kind of like just like this, like going through TikTok.
David, you should definitely test that. You should definitely put that into an ad. That's an interesting hook. You should definitely.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we are scaling up, and we scaled up really quickly with no monetization, and now we're scaling with monetization. So that's another challenge, right? So like a startup has a few milestones to get through. It's like Okay, can you get a concept of an idea and a team together so you can get a seed round? Okay, some companies never get past this one. We get past this one. Next one is, can you find some traction with users so you can start scaling up? So that's the next thing. If you can't do that, then you probably die. And then after that, can you get more funding and start building a team even more? So that's like the next one, if you can do that. Then at this point, probably people will start thinking, even more now than ever, can you monetize? So can you monetize and start supporting your team, right? And that's kind of the level that we're at right now. We are monetizing, but can we support full team and full growth? Because once you get to that point, it's basically game over. Can you monetize, support your team, and support growth? Then it's really pretty easy to get funding if you wanted to. Like, would you really want to sell part of your company if you have that, right? It's like money printing machine. It's like a digital thing that's supporting all the business operations and has enough to grow. Well, I mean, maybe you wouldn't want to sell even any percentage of that because it's like that's the goal. That's the goal to do that. Yeah, so that's where we're at on the journey. Yeah.
Crazy path, man. Like really respect on that one. Really interesting as well. Like how it started. Like it was like what I like about it is that it's like has this natural kind of flow. Where it's like, you had the experience offline. So also when we talk, you said like we don't want to make these tables bigger because we know the optimal size from the cafe. So you could put so much learnings just into this new medium kind of in. And that's
Right.
that's like really cool. So like you didn't do something like completely new. You just already knew there is a huge lever. You just needed to kind of prove it in a way that it's there. So at the beginning, it just transitioned from then Zoom into like you had your CTO, and did you at what? Because also when we talked about, you mentioned to me that you at the beginning you also ran some ads, for example, in Meta to get some KPIs going. I think it was for the investors. How was that and why was that? Just to emphasize that for startups starting out.
Yeah. So I think that's a choice you have to make. I don't think it's necessarily the right or the wrong choice. I mean, there will be people who have different preferences or beliefs. Maybe we can call one side like a purist. I sort of leaned to this side. I'm making up a term right now, but the purist might think like, don't spend ads, just really organically get a community, like a core community that's really excited about the product. And then new people come in, you don't even want people that are light, and you just leave them out. Don't try to add them. And we did that for a long time, but in the climate we were in, we needed to get investment. So we had to sort of like artificially boost up the community, which I think has longer term damaging effects because the community is a bit lighter. It's not as cohesive, right? Like, think about like making a snowball. Like if it's snowing and you make a snowball, sometimes it's hard to get it started. But if you get it started and it's really compact at the base, then you can start adding onto it, and then the expression is it snowballs. But if you start just adding too much like snow that's not really compact, then the whole thing can crumble apart because it's not cohesive. So that's the decision you have to make. Like if you're showing investors like, here's my snowball, and it's like rock hard, but it's this small, a lot of investors won't really understand that the value there. But if you show them something like this, but it's a bit softer, they might think, okay, yeah, we'll give you some money. But you know that you do need to have a solid core. So can you see the trade-off of what that is?
100%, yeah. And you kind of, and so then you just kind of chose that path because you need to grow in the quick environment, because you also need to keep going.
Yeah, you got to keep going. Like business is not really A to B to C to D. It's like it's kind of goes all over the place, right? Because like the market conditions will change. The amount of like things that come up all the time, like you thought you could get a team member for this much, but it ended up being more expensive, or you needed two. So now your burn is shortening, right? So it's like, okay, if we're in a vacuum, we can do all of these purist ideas, but we're not in a vacuum. It's like, so we had to sacrifice some of just growing organically until we hit a critical level to bring more people in quickly. But now we've extended our life, right, by getting an investment. So I think ideally you would want to be able to just really satisfy the people who first adopt your product, right?
Yeah.
But if you're looking out on the horizon, like what's the real, like what was realistically, what can we do? Another option would be to cut all your staff and then just go really lean and then just keep going that way, right? But if you're prepared to do that, that's another option.
Okay, yeah. And what was the first thing that you kind of tested with, for example, with ads when you went into the not organic side? What was the first thing that when you run ads for?
When we're running ads, I think the first thing we started doing was we thought tracking was very good. What we wanted to do was, I mean, at that point, we're still figuring out like, what are the numbers we want to track. And at that time, we were tracking talk time. So the amount of time that people are talking in the app. Like here we are on a Zoom call, and let's say that we've been talking for 30 minutes. You were talking for 30 minutes, I'm talking for 30 minutes. So that's an hour of talk time. So we were really tracing that as our key metric. So when we started doing the ads, we made some ads like where you put your key metric is what you're optimizing for, right? Like earlier on when we had tried these ads, we thought, okay, let's just make each part of the funnel so the person goes to the next part, right? So like we made an ad that was really fun, like kind of like a meme style ad, and it got shared around by lots of people. People clicked it and go to the next part, but they were light users because when they saw the ad, it was fun, and they wanted to click it because they thought, oh, that connects with me. It's a Korean pop star that I really like, and there's something funny. It's really got a good sense to it. A lot of comments, a lot of shares. They come into the app, but they're not really Korean learners or English learners, and so they just churn out. So it's like we're paying money to acquire users, you're just going to churn out. So rather, we wanted to get users that spend a lot of time using it. So we spent the ads trying to get downloads. That was important, but trying to show that our the users that are staying in the app and using the app, that was more important.
Okay, 100%. Have you at the beginning tested something out where you just run like survey, like just send into Typeform or something to test something out also for the investors? Is that also something that you've done, or some waiting list or something at the beginning, like when you launched the app first, or at that kind of really early stage?
We weren't trying to get investors at that point. We'd already had our seed, but for ourselves, I think there's a book. It's called Hacking Growth. It was a good book to read, and they have a survey in the book. I think the survey is called the must-have survey, and it's like 10 questions. And I think the most important question in that survey is, if HILOKAL, that's the name of our service, was gone tomorrow, how upset would you be? Right?
Mhm.
And I think it's a rank from 1 to 10. It's kind of like the net promoter score, like like from 1 to 10, how much would you share this app with somebody? Like everything below 7 is just meaningless. It's 8, 9, 10. The number of people that put those numbers mean they're a promoter. So the must-have survey is the number of people that that would be very upset if the app was gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. It's not cruel, but like there are people who are using this service and they're liking it, right? And then you kind of, the question that you're really doing is like, if I take this away, like, how upset are you going to be, right? And if people are not upset, they're just like, yeah, whatever, right? Then you don't have much there. But
Yeah.
if people are like, yeah, well, like they start messaging you, they're like, is HILOKAL gonna go away, or like what's going on? Then you start to know that you have a core.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting, and yeah, so that was after you did that after your seed round, then.
Yeah, that was for ourselves. I mean, we didn't even want to show an investor that. That was like, okay, so how much are people in actually liking this?
So like you
So
also,
there is a percentage that you have to have like over 80% that are in like very upset range.
Mhm. Okay, really interesting. So you're always like reflecting on like what's going on also inside the app, also always kind of looking at these factors. Is it like that going on in the right direction? Really
Yeah, definitely.
okay. And currently it's you're like at a stage where you're saying, okay, do you want to raise the next round? I mean, I think like in the VC space you need to, but what is like right now you're just trying to you have the team, like you have already you're good financed, so you're just looking forward to grow and grow the user base, also to kind of sustain yourself a bit. Um, what is the kind of way now?
Yeah, I think right now is just narrowing in on monetization and growth. That's the idea. Um, like it's not about making money to put in the pocket. It's about showing that the product can support itself and continue to grow. It's a very challenging thing to do with purely like a digital service, B2C. Like because you're competing with not only other language learning apps, in our case, like you're competing with how people spend their time, right?
Yeah.
And like so you're competing with TV, you're competing with news, you're competing with Twitter, you're competing with lots of different things. Um, and people, the way the internet is set up, this is like a structural thing, is like it's free because advertisements have sort of supported the entire internet, right? Like if someone uses software, the first inclination they have is like, it should be free. The internet's free, right? It's like, even when I'm using the internet, I also have that same feeling, right? Like this is they're making billions of dollars somehow. You don't know how, but they're doing it. But there are lots of engineers who are very expensive writing every single piece of code. It exists on a server somewhere physically, right? There's a team that are answering customer service questions. Like, how does that get paid for? It gets paid for with ads, but if you don't get to like a massive critical mass, then ads, you cannot sustain yourself with ads. So the challenge is like creating some really compelling service that people will pay for. Like they're engaged with it and it comes to a paywall at some point, and they either click yes or no, right? And it's a much harder challenge than growing a free app, is to grow the free app into a place where you can monetize it.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. Like also like supporting that with like paid ads. I mean, that's also something that you're doing. I wanted to know like what was your background also with ads? Like how have you kind of found your way also with that? Because like you're the CMO, I guess, from like you're the CMO. So
Yeah. So as a CMO, like I CMO and also product owner, like I didn't want to spend any money on marketing ever, not until we got the product good. Because like we're getting over 1,000 to 2,000 organic registrations per day at our current point, and it has to get much bigger than that in the future. But that's not from ads. That's from people, from the App Store being good, search being good, people recommending it to their friends. Like if we had done ads in the beginning, only ads, then that is kind of like it goes up, like the trajectory of a company is like this, and then it should go up like that. Like
yeah,
that's how it follows, right? But ads will take you like, and it'll take a bump up like that. It'll take a bump like that, but it'll go back to the reality of what that product is. Like
yeah,
where the product is the reality, and the ads can take a bump up. But I think the most valuable thing from the ads is to get learnings, right? Like to get information about what is good about your service and what people are responding to, and then incorporate that into your product,
yeah.
right? And getting that, if you have a social app where more users make your app better, then you can speed up the process of you getting to that curve, right? But all the heavy lifting of making something good cannot be avoided.
Yeah, like that you're on 100% the right track with that. Like that's always the right way to use them. Like I mean, like we've done also so many tests on that kind of path to just find out what's working with the audience. As you said it in the beginning, it was this addicted kind of thing, but also in a different country, in South Korea, it was something completely different. Like to learn that, to incorporate that in an organic app, because at the end, like we can boost the thing with ads, but that's like you said it perfectly. I can't add anything to that. It's really good.
Yeah.
So okay. And when would you would recommend to startups to use paid ads just to test the product, right? To see what is good about it, what is bad about it, what kind of user groups are working. That's the way you would, and to test the product. That's the way.
I think that's a great tool. I mean, putting budget on that, like how many different ways can you learn, right? Like a startup should be pretty like scrappy in that, like they'll have to figure out ways to learn things that are not expensive. I mean, ads is good because you pay for what you do, so you could put on like a small budget, get information. And it's important to get information that's you can depend on. Like if you run, let's just say you run you decide to put $100 to answer a question on these ads, but if you don't really answer that question, then maybe that's a waste of that money. Even if you got some users along the way, but like if you conclusively, like you can type in like statistical calculator online. It's like, okay, I got this many, and this many users, and they did this, and this many users, and they did this. It's like, okay, clearly this is the right one, and then I think that's really useful way to use ads.
Okay. Yeah. So for example, you would say like in our incubator, like what we're doing is that we develop the MVP, find it, and we want to like find out the problem solution fit with these paid ads to test what is working. So you see that as a good way, a good kind of way to use ads also to find out.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the principle is the same. I think it's like make something that, and then see if people will respond to it. But like you'll have to balance, because you'll have to deliver that at some point, right? Like I think it's Tim Ferriss. He's like a classic guy. Like the 4-Hour Workweek is kind of like the original this way of thinking, right? And he would make a landing page and put ads to it, and then just see how many registrations he would get, and then he would decide to make the product or not. It's a little bit cheeky because you're sort of, it's a little the way that he would do it was a little bit dishonest, right? Because he might not make that product. So people gave the email, he might not make it, but you could get like a really good result, but then can you make that product?
That's good, yeah.
Like, here's a product that gives you free money, and everyone gives you their email, or maybe they don't because they don't believe it, which they shouldn't, but something like that. And then you're like, okay, now I just gotta make it. And you make it, and you just lose all your money.
That's really interesting. Yeah. One more question. Like how is it, like how involved were you when you were like raising the rounds, when you were going that path, and what was it like also emotionally for you because you said it's something completely different than the Global Soulmates. By the way, it's a really cool name. Like Global Soul, like this, not only the city. Like how was it giving away something from your company, like it's your baby kind of? How did that feel? And
yeah, I mean, I the way we have 3 co-founders, so the way it works is like I'm really focused on building out the product and working on. We kind of have like 3 levels. The CTO is like, so the way we look at it is like there's a helicopter, there's a Jeep, there's like a Jeep engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So like the helicopter is a partner of mine, and he's really looking for investments and looking for really big problems. So he's in the helicopter. I'm driving the Jeep. So I'm like on the day-to-day, like how do we go to where we're trying to go? And then the engineer is like fixing the Jeep, making sure it keeps going. That's kind of where we're at. So the investments is not something that I was very emotionally invested in. Like I was emotionally invested in making sure that we were getting to where we needed to go, and that we had good metrics along the way, so that I could give it, and then we can get the investment, right?
It's amazing, yeah. Like you really have a. I mean, you're not at the stage where you are without a proper backup behind you. Like it's everything makes sense. Like you're like, you have a great team. Like, I mean, you work long with your co-founder, with other co-founders as well. So that's like really, you have everything really structured, I think, as well. And like having as we talked about, having the marketing and the product like at a scale where you are together makes a lot of sense, because I see a lot of founders who don't know much about the marketing thing, and want to do the product, and there's somewhere in between these two, but they need to kind of merge this. I think that's the right way.
Right. I know, but I think that's true. It's just about like the sort of the honest problem solving is really good. Like if you're a marketer and you're like, you stick to what you know and you're comfortable to it, right? Like you're comfortable with it, and then you keep getting users, but then there's kind of like your vision goes, not your vision, but the scope of what you take care of is here, right? And then this is like someone else's thing, and this is someone else's thing. So maybe you get a lot of users in the door, and then even if you're on a founder level, like whether they stay in the app or not is not really my problem. You might not think of it like that, but like just from the human nature of like sticking to what you know, you will like blindside yourself from looking at that as your real problem.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's like, he's an engineer, and the CTO he mentions is called like, I don't know where it comes from. I think he's got these funny like expressions. It's called building a bike shed. So it's like this is an analogy for in your life, you've got all these different things you have to do, but instead you're building a bike shed. It's kind of like it's like you're procrastinating and doing the last thing that's not the thing you need to do. So like, even if you're a marketer, like building the product should be, if that's what's holding the company back, you should be working on that, I think.
Yeah.
What can you do to help it? So you just have to have like a really honest look. Like if you're looking at your company, yeah, this part's garbage, this part's shit. Like we have to fix it. And so you just have to honestly problem solve that, right? You can problem solve anything. You can learn a bit of code, you can learn marketing, you can learn anything that needs to be done. I think that has to happen.
100%. Yeah. And how are you at the scale? Because you said you're the product owner and you do the marketing, and like you have the CTO. He's like the chief engineer who fixes everything. So it's like you learn something, you find something out. Basically, this needs to be done, and then you hand it over to the chief engineer, and he's then having, of course, you're right now at the stage where you have a dev team, and then they're fixed. Then they're going to fix it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we try to have some sort of division of tasks, but I don't think it's anywhere near at all compared to a bigger company. Like a bigger company, there'll be like rules of engagement, right? Like you don't contact that department unless it's through these designated channels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a structure, and the structure has to have a frame. I mean, a structure is a structure. That's what it is. But as a startup, it's like very flexible and fluid, right? And that's your advantage.
Yeah, that's what we love about it as well, I think. Right? Yeah. Well, then, like, thank you so much. I think this interview is something that I will send to every new founder. It's like you explained so many good things that are, in my opinion, so relevant.
I hope it was helpful. I mean, I think I did say a lot of things that just are maybe common sense. I don't know.
But you explained it in a good way. Like this product building and the marketing together is so crucially important. It's so important. Like, yeah.
Okay, I will hope that was helpful to somebody.
It definitely is.